108 Stitches Baseball Talk is back. Monday Night Baseball, our version of it. Trent Clark is back from Costa Rica. I hope you had a good old time. Great stuff. Yankee Jazz is in there, boys. It's a beautiful thing. Glad you're back on Yankee Jazz because Eric Katz is going to be talking about the Subway Series. We have a great crew tonight. Of course, we also let Trent Clark know that he's going to become teammates with Stan Huff, who was on last week. So it'll be about 2 or 3 weeks out, and we will not be on for Memorial Day week, Memorial Day night, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Rest assured, by the end of this show, I'll make sure you're educated, and if you don't get everything on the first time, don't hesitate to go out there and watch it again and again. There's a lot of information on there as well. So without further ado, let me go ahead. I guess we'll talk about the crew. Trent Clark, welcome back to the big show.
Great to be back here, Motor City Madmouth. Always good to be joining 108 Stitches on a beautiful Monday night, and baseball is heating up.
Where are you at? You're obviously in a cold place. Here's the thing. Trent Clark likes to go on location everywhere. Where are you at, Mr. Clark?
Rink. I'm just hanging out at the ice rink. Little practice tonight. Little work on the little rink. It's time to get at it, man. Like this is when ice hockey happens. This is when stars are made in June.
All right. There we go. All right, Eric Katz. By the way, announcement here about Eric Katz. When I start to write my book about Europe, and Trent, you don't know this, we're going to be waiting on the second edition of this later in the year. Eric Katz has been asked, and he's accepted that he will write the foreword of my second book about Europe. So Eric Katz gets the opportunity. He's been pushing me to do a lot of stuff. So Eric, congratulations.
Thank you.
But when you went out there and let everybody know that you're telling me, I think you need to do it, and then you do the other sports, Eric Katz has volunteered himself for that activity. He'll be notified about as we continue to progress. Another one of the authors, and we only have 3 on the show, St. Clarky and myself, is George Eichhorn with that piano. There you go.
Yes,
congratulations,
sir. Yes, sir. Welcome, everybody.
And last but not least, the Mitten Man, Taylor Phelps, who also will be appearing every now and then on Wednesday night's edition of the Sports Exchange as needed. So that's funny, Cyberuski. Can I write the backward? I've never heard that one. Candy, put that one up. This Cyberuski comes up with one every now and then. Well, Joshua Dore, that's a great question. What is Eric's experience with Europe? He doesn't have any that I know of, but he is the one who's motivated me to write this book because he feels like at my stage of the game here, you need to do something outside of sports. So we'll just say that he's going out there and providing the impetus to motivate. And no hockey stuff will be talked about tonight. So just want to make sure everybody understands. We'll do the best we can. That's why we have a thing called a hockey show. So Joshua Dore, appreciate the hunger and energy, But I will say this, congratulations to the Florida Panthers. They certainly went out there and made Toronto's life miserable. And they, for the Leafs, who have been miserable since 1967, probably a lot. Their drought is as long as the people that we have out there watching the network. We'll say everybody, but a lot. Busy agenda to get to. And I mean, real busy. Hopefully, I have a lot of Pittsburgh people in the house because this one is definitely targeted there. I'm going to be all over the map tonight. Paul Skenes isn't happy about the current state of the Pittsburgh Pirates and wasn't thrilled that they lost 3-0 on his bobblehead night. My goodness, life is tough when you lose on the bobble night. At night, they have a new manager, Don Kelly. He says everybody likes each other, but positive feelings, friendships, and all that don't win championships. We've got to figure it out. Enter Don Kelly. Pirates have the second longest drought in playoffs with 9 years, 2016. The other ones that follow suit are the LA Angels with 10. And get this, okay, in his last 10 starts, he's only yielded 17 earned runs, and the Pirates have lost 7 of those games. And to make life even more difficult here, he threw his first complete game with the Pirates, and he lost 1-0 to the Philadelphia Phillies. A lot to digest, Mr. Clark, but we're going to let you start off with it since you've been off a little while.
So we're talking Skenes and the Pirates, and man, I got to tell you, this is the story of the history of these young up-and-comers, man. They come into the market, and, I remember, this is the one thing that concerns me about a Skenes guy, right? Do we all recall Willie Blair? Willie Blair, the Detroit Tiger, coming up young and hot, and then Julio Franco hits him with that line drive, and all of a sudden the career is forever changed. And you get a guy in a situation where he's just busting his tail in there. He's not going to be there very long. And he's already, this is a warning shot in year 2 across the bow. Something's got to change or he won't stay. And I don't know how long his initial contract's for, but the big teams in the coast are going to go pick up with his numbers.
Interesting. Willie Blair, by the way, is a good friend of mine. I'm hoping to have him on this show probably later in the year. He's currently, just so you know, Trent, with Dayton and working with the Red system. So there you go. So I knew that this would draw Trent Pensman in. Paul Skenes doesn't enjoy Pittsburgh anymore. Not enough talent around, no question about it. Hey, Joshua Dorr, that'll be Pensman's choice. Doesn't belong in the chat room. But, as long as you behave, then everybody will be friends, okay? Just, a little tip from your unofficial mentor, Joshua Dorr. Be a nice boy. It's okay. All right. With that said, where was I at with this whole thing? Pensman, like I said, Paul Skenes doesn't enjoy Pittsburgh anymore. Not enough talent around. Pretty much validated it. Put it up there so everybody can see it on YouTube, Candy, so that we have it there. Beautiful. All right. There you go. All right, Cassie, what do you think about Paul Skenes?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, Pittsburgh has what I think is a playoff caliber starting rotation that, on any other team, even with like a subpar offense, could get them into the playoffs. Like it's almost similar to what the Milwaukee Brewers had with Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, and when Corbin Burns was there. Enough offense, but plenty of pitching to get them far. But here's the thing. Pittsburgh has been a train wreck of a franchise for years. It's been awful ever since the post Jim Leland years. They've been awful. I don't even know why Bob Nutting even still owns the team if he doesn't want to try and win. They recently fired their manager, but what's that going to solve? Nothing. It solves absolutely zero on that team because all it really does is just pass the baton to somebody else, and the Pittsburgh Pirates become a training wheels manager job for somebody else who will get some improvement out of the players who will be able to go to a better place where they're actually serious about winning. I know, but the fact of the matter is, though, this all goes back to Ben Sherrington. It's not just yes, the players are ultimately responsible for being on the field, but Ben Sherrington hasn't developed a position player on this team. His offense is hot garbage. They can't hit the back of a barn door, and it's just one big old mess. I'm surprised he didn't get the boot too. But the fact that the only thing that's keeping him alive is Paul Skenes, just on the fact that Pittsburgh was so bad that they were afforded the opportunity to draft him. Paul Skenes, man, I feel for you. Yeah, I know you're probably just itching privately to get out of there. And trust me, there will be brighter days ahead for you in what will be a Hall of Fame career.
All right, Joshua Cyberowski. I'm going to give you a lesson from the microphone, but I'm going to do it on the fly. That gesture that Mr. Phillips is making is called the thinking man. I have a thinking man style where you put your hand up there and you look and you kind of listen. It's called Comprehension 101, which I know that Joshua and Cyberowski are doing coming from the Motor City Madmouth, right, guys? So just so you know, that Taylor Phillips is as sharp as attack. Okay. What are your thoughts about Skenes?
Well, Paul Skenes just isn't getting any run support, neither is this Pirates starting rotation. The Pirates really need a better hitting coach. They also need better hitting talent. Things have got to change, of course. So, Paul, otherwise, Paul Skenes might be trade bait. So, I think he deserves to be to pitch on a winning team, of course. And the Pirates right now are not that.
Well, it's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. But thanks for stating a future topic on the show, Taylor. If that's something we're going to talk about, we certainly have a lot of people in the Pittsburgh area that follow us as well. I'll just say this, and I'll let George Eichhorn have the final word on it. As far as I'm concerned, the reason why I went out there and titled the show is Paul Skenes' talent being wasted in Pittsburgh, without question. Yes, that's all I'm going to say on it. Eichhorn, you have the final word on it.
Well, I think it's a situation which obviously was not unexpected. I'm not so sure I expected him to speak his mind so early in the season, but my God, they're already 13 behind in the wild card race, and they're going nowhere. Um, Kelly's a good guy. Kelly used to be in Detroit as utility guy. The fans loved him, but can he manage? I don't know. And I see he brought back a guy named Gene Lamont
Right.
to help out in Pittsburgh. But Skenes is, yeah, he's setting himself up, like Trent said. He's going to be one of those that's going to command an awful lot of money. I don't necessarily think they're going to trade him, Taylor. I just don't think it's going to happen. But he's setting the table to say, hey, look, you better do something. You better do it fast to get us some arms and get us some bats, because this franchise is in disarray. I agree with that, Mr. Katz. There's no question about it. And it has been, like you said, for years and years. And this is very unfortunate. But trust me, if they don't do something fast, Skenes is going to walk.
Well, you know what? That sets up a good segue. Keep this one up, Candy. Skenes in Seattle would be a very intriguing possibility. Seattle right now is playing well, and they're not afraid to spend money out in Seattle. You don't blame me. You don't blame me. What about Robinson Cano? He left from the Yankees actually to go to Seattle, but unfortunately for him, his career went south when he left for the Yankees. But he took the money and ran. But I love what Jazz 13 said to Seattle. That would be an intriguing possibility. And Jazz 13, since you brought that up, we're gonna follow that as time goes on. That's the most intriguing thing that I've seen so far. Great stuff, Jazz 13. Glad to have you back. All right, we're gonna stay on the pitching theme. After all, why change from it? And let's go over to Sandy Alcantara. Will he be traded by the end of the season? Can he go to the tape? Daniel Aveler has
a different way.
You think we'll see Sandy Alcantara here at the end of the year? I know there's talk that you might want to let him go when you get a high value. I would hate to see that the reigning Cy Young Award winner won't be here. We don't have any retired jerseys here. It would be nice to see one every once in a while.
Yeah, I just don't know, because I think he could be. If you would have asked me this at the beginning of the year, I would have said, yeah, 100%, absolutely. Right. But the way he's doing now, I just don't know. Maybe they'll wait a bit to see how he's doing and what type of value they can get from him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone by August.
All right. The person I'm talking to, and he'll be seeing him a lot on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, my colleague Daniel Alvarez Montez. Daniel has been a colleague of mine. I've been with the Marlins for now 5 years. And for those of you that are familiar with Rod Allen, he's down here with me as a broadcaster for the Marlins, both on radio and TV. But Danny's about the most reliable source on the planet. With that said, Trent, what are your thoughts about Alcantara and how much longer he has down here in Miami?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, to be a Cy Young Award winner in Miami is something special in the first place. It's hard to be a Cy Young Award winner anywhere. But, you kind of expected, there's a little bit, seemed like more opportunity when we give this big money to a Yankee or a Dodger, and they got a lineup. Can you be a Cy Young Award winner and win 20 games when you got 7 runs of support every game? Yeah. And he never got that. So I think it's pretty special. I think much like Paul Skenes, he's a guy who's positioned right now for some pretty big opportunity and what's next for him. And one of the big coast teams are going to come for him for sure. Especially at the trade deadline. Well,
Peter Bendich isn't afraid to move people without a doubt. But with the way I look at it, with Sandy's an innings eater, and he's coming back from that severe operation, so he's trying to get his groove back. In fact, let me take it a step further over the weekend, and that's this. I'm going to go over his numbers that he had on Saturday. Then I'll turn it over to Eric Katz. He goes 5 innings, gives up 5 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, no home runs. But he yielded 4 stolen bases, so he had a hard time keeping guys on. Again, Sandy Alcantara is unbelievable. I've enjoyed watching the pitch during his tenure in Miami, although I definitely see it's not the means of all end. He's going to wind up everywhere else. And Jazz 13 for being on here. We know where Jazz Chisholm has wound up. Back in, you never know, they could be teammates. So again, pick it up from there, Eric.
I mean, I still think he's going to get traded. I mean, the guy, when he's right, is a very talented arm. He's a very, very much a swing and a miss pitcher. Yes, he's trying to find his groove. Yes, it's been ugly at times, but that's what you do when you're trying to kind of get back in shape. Typically when you're just coming back off not pitching a while, it takes a while. I think it wouldn't shock it. I still think he's going to be traded. It depends on whose farm system. I don't think it'll be the Yankees because I don't think the Yankees have a deep enough farm system for him. And it's really going to depend on like what they're looking to get. So but right now his value is not really high right now. Just give it his numbers, but it's really going to depend what the Marlins and other teams are willing to deal with. Are you willing to take a high risk, high reward? Because we all know what Sandy is when he's healthy, and when he's right. Or are you just not willing to take that chance knowing what you see now? It really depends on what teams are willing to kind of do. I mean, we've seen plenty of teams go high risk, high reward. I know the Yankees did that, albeit unsuccessfully last year with trading for Juan Soto. They went to that poker table and went all in, and it worked for a year. But at the same time, they didn't get him long term. So I don't know. It just depends on what are teams willing to gamble.
Okay,
But
so
I do believe he will be traded.
Okay, so Penvin says he likes Skenes to the Yankees for Will Warren. We'll see.
That
Jazz 13. Okay, well, it's all right. Put it up there. It's worth addressing. Does he stay in Florida, go to the Braves? You know what, Jazz, I don't think the Marlins going to trade Sandy to the Braves, a divisional opponent.
No.
Candy gives you a little bit of an overview on some stats about Alcantara. From there, we go back to Taylor Phillips and then George Icor. So with that said, George, you get to read the comments. Or actually, you know what? We're going to let Taylor read the comments, and then you can address that.
Yep. Alcantara signed with the Cardinals as an international free agent in 2013 and made his MLB debut with them in 2017. The Cardinals then traded Alcantara to the Marlins after the 2017 season. He was an All-Star in 2019 and 2022 and won the National League Cy Young Award in 2022.
There you go. Those are the numbers. Now you get to talk about Alcantara.
So Alcantara just had a rough outing. He's still good. I think he has a good trade value. We don't know which team he will go to. Of course, only time will tell. But the Tigers and Dodgers and Mets and Padres are in the buyer's market. They could use him as a pitcher.
Taylor, let me pick you up there a little bit because you mentioned a team of interest to me, and I am going to pick up a little bit. The Padres seem like a compelling possibility. They made some trades last year, and I think he could be one of these outside the division. We'll leave it at that. But I like the Padres, and we'll leave it out there. All right, George, some thoughts about Sandy. And yes, Jazz, it's okay. A lot of people tend to forget that the Braves and the Marlins same division, but you brought it up, and it was intriguing to bring up nonetheless. All right, George, some thoughts about Alcantara.
Well, yeah, he's a very strong candidate to be traded. No question about it. He's being cheated in a way because obviously he hasn't played with super great teams down in Miami. So his one-loss record, his ERA, this is the point now in his career where they have to get that big contract his agent does in front of him because he's got still a lot of years left in baseball. But the fact of the matter is he's 29 years old and his numbers are not there for the kind of Cy Young candidate and Cy Young winner he has been.
Right.
So I'm just saying this is more of a crucial point of his career where he's got to make sure he gets himself and his agent negotiating to a right contract. Now you mentioned about a trade real quickly. Yeah, he could be traded and then maybe he'll move on to a team that he's happier with. I don't know. That whole thing needs to be worked out. But he does need a fresh start. I mean, I hate to say this, but he's languishing a little bit and taking nothing away from the Marlins. I know they're trying to build a product too, but boy, oh boy, he's got to nail his next contract and get that money that these pitchers get at that age.
Okay, George, with that said, why don't you go ahead and read the next group of comments that research that Candy has put up there. Go ahead,
Sure.
George.
Alcantara's fastball velocity generally sits around 97, maxing out around 101 miles per hour. He uses both a four-seam fastball and a sinker, which possesses above-average vertical and horizontal movement. His secondary pitches are the changeup, 90 to 94 range, and slider, 89 to 93 range, and curveball, 82. Although his use of the curveball is scarce.
Okay. Great
Well
stuff,
said,
Candy.
Candy.
Great stuff with their research. All right, we're going to stay on the Marlins theme. Danny is obviously one of my best sources in college. So without a doubt, if he says it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I certainly, in this business, you have to trust to know who your sources are and where they're coming from. And our first hour on Professor the Pupil, Stephen Reichel and I talked about fake news versus real news. And that's where a lot of that concept tends to chime in. All right, we're going to go to a brief topic here, but a really good one that when you go to games, things become more magnified. Cal Quantrill's immaculate inning. Get this, Candy. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview about Cal Quantrill. He's 30 years of age, turned 30 on February 10th of 95. His lifetime record is 46 up, 46 and 38. He has 566 strikeouts. Played for San Diego from 19 to 20. Cleveland 20 to 23. Certainly one of Trent's favorite places. Colorado 20 to 24. Now he's with the Marlins. And going into yesterday's game, now he had to work himself out of a tough fourth inning jam. Cal Quantrill was 2-4 with a 7.00 ERA. No question there that number definitely went down as well. So he was actually Brian Pettis was in Greenville, South Carolina, about 20 minutes from me tonight. Look at that. So Candy's going to give us some more stats on it. Then George, you can pick it up, and we'll continue to go there. She'll give you details of what took place there. All right, Candy, let's put the numbers up. George, you can go ahead and read this.
Okay, she called it Immaculate Cal. In the bottom of the fourth on Sunday versus Tampa Bay, right-hander Cal Quantrill completed his first immaculate inning in the majors this season. He became the first major leaguer to accomplish the feat since the Rays righty Ryan Pettipo on September the 18th, 2024 against Boston, and the second Marlins pitcher to do so in club history. Also, left-handed pitcher Jesus Sanchez on September 13th of 98 against Atlanta. It marked just the 118th immaculate inning in Major League Baseball history. And prior to yesterday, Quantrill had only struck out the side. Wow.
Impressive stuff, George. What are your thoughts about Quantrill, what he did yesterday?
Oh, it's amazing. I like to see these guys, when they attack the record book like that, it's really a good thing to see. You're right, Scott, with, he had his career start in San Diego and then Cleveland for a number of years, Colorado for 1 year, and now with Miami. He's still got a lot left in him. I know that his ERA is over the top right now at 6.37, but that performance gave an unbelievable lift, hopefully, to him and to the Marlins pitching staff as well.
Well, I've seen a no-hitter by Anderson Alvarez against the Tigers, ironically, over at Little Depot Park. Went to the All-Star game. Now we got to see that. So the immaculate inning. All right. Go ahead, Taylor. And before I do that, though, let's go back to the chat room. Jazz says, do the Yankees want Stanton back to be productive? I'm going to turn that one over to Eric. We have a lot to get to. And we'll just say that Eric is the Yankee guy. What do you think?
Of course they do, and no, there's no trade value there. Too much money and too many years left on that contract. Plus, the guy, for what it's for, let's just call it like it is, people. The guy's body's breaking down, but when he's healthy, though, and he goes up to the plate and guesses right, that ball ends up on the other side of the bleachers. But I think for better or worse, he will be back, and it's going to be great because he'll help balance out the Yankees lineup, which is kind of in need of another righty right now. And let's stop hating on Stanton, because guess what? He's the one who dragged the Yankees last year to the World Series with that prolific postseason performance. So y'all should be happy that he's coming back.
Okay. All right, Taylor Phillips. Look, you can talk about Cal Quantrill, then I'll come back to you, Eric, on it.
Quantrill accomplished an amazing feat. I'll bet you that he can do it again in the near future. But that being said, he has raised the bar yet again for pitching in Major League Baseball, and others are willing to just adjust to their abilities and try to accomplish that feat as well, just to raise their confidence with their velocity and the command and mechanics and stuff like that. So it's going to transcend it sometime in the future. Great job, Cal Quantrill.
Okay, back to Eric.
I mean, Cal Quantrill's he's always been an okay, like kind of back of the rotation kind of pitcher. Not a guy you want like at the 2 and the 3 spot, but more like 4 and 5, where he can anchor that part of the rotation down. I think part of the reason his ERA is so high this year is if you look at his FIP, though, he's pitching kind of like a number 4, number 5 pitcher, but
Right.
it also hasn't helped him that his defense has done him no favors there. So not completely on him. But overall, though, I mean, you throw an immaculate inning, it's hard to do. It very rarely happens. And the fact he was able to do it in especially on rivalry weekend was it's something to hang your hat on. But I think as the season goes on, you'll start his numbers will kind of level out, and you'll probably see him pitching like his numbers will look that of a number 4 or a number 5 pitcher like he's always been, with the exception of his time in Cleveland. But let's be honest, they can turn a guy off the street in Cleveland into a serviceable arm.
Well, the man that's been in the uniform, Trent Clark, can talk about it. And obviously, Trent, as we go pick that last topic, I want you to reiterate, in case for those of you just joining us, about the Sandy Alcantara. Then you could go to Cal Quantrill, because people are just popping in right now. We know that you're talking about Marlins pitchers that pitch on back-to-back days that Candy and I had an opportunity to see. Say something brief about Sandy, then I want you to go to Quantrill. After that, we go to a station break.
Yeah, we're talking about a little bit of Sandy Alcantara. It's about the ability of him being a former Cy Younger, coming back, looking at what's the best option, getting his numbers back in there, and then if Miami will hold on to him for a long-term play, or will they deal him for talent, right? Potentially shoring up some of the minor league talent, getting some players that can help them right now, young, affordable talent. And also the idea that Alcatraz is at that point where it's big money contract time. So he'll be looking hard at that as well, but he's got to get those numbers back to pre-injury status, right? And then, of course, the other one we're looking at diligently is the immaculate inning, right? And I think, this guy Cam is probably not known as this, like you said, 4 or 5 starter on a team. Rays tend to really develop arms, so that's a little bit impressive to see another one coming out of there in the last few years here. And but it does kind of talk about and lean into the talent that these guys all have, like not just the top players, not just the best of the best, the Greg Maddoxes of the world, but all these guys are absolutely fabulous players and have fabulous arms and mechanics and skill sets that they're developing. Some of the best pitching coaches. I think one of the other guys mentioned, Cleveland's so good at developing pitchers' arms and getting to that next level. And so when you look at that, it takes something special. It takes a little, moment of magic all in one place to get that inning in. But in the same breath, there's probably 80% of the talent in the major leagues has the ability to do it. And a couple things got to line up just right for you, including that lineup, right? And what part of the order. But it's an amazing feat and pretty cool to see. And it's also one of those stats you don't see a lot of, which is always makes it special.
Okay, very good. We're going to go to a station break. Then when we come back, Trent's going to talk about the Tommy John surgery that we talked about last week, because it's interesting to get his comments. Chet Lemon, and we're also going to give you an update on the Orlando Stadium situation, and we have Tiger Talk afterwards. Candy, go to a station break.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. The book is written by none other than our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn, another panelist on tonight. Talks about their 40-plus years in the media business and how it has evolved and changed. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content. Go check it out. Plus, if you need a South Florida Tribune hat, sweatshirt, t-shirt, our store is on their website as well. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And yes, if you want to be a guest on the country club, email us. Back to you, Scott.
Great stuff. And we know a guy that was in Costa Rica last week, so we got to bring him up to speed. First of all, Trent, what are your thoughts about Tommy John in the Hall of Fame? Do you like it? Do you think it should happen?
I mean, listen, if you have that kind of surgery named after you, I think you should be in the Hall of Fame. But I think that, Tommy John, great pitcher. And I think equally impressive is coming back off the injury and still throwing and doing well after that. I mean, that's always kind of a special tribute to Tommy John. And, I think he's well deserving of it.
Chet Lemon, some thoughts about him.
Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Oh, no. Chet Lemon. No, not Hall of Fame. He passed away. So, you have any memories of Chet Lemon?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I got some great memories of Chet Lemon. Obviously, a longtime Tiger and White Sox. Saw them both coming up as a kid playing. I never coached Chet Lemon. He left just before I arrived in Detroit. Chet was a fan favorite. And there's some great stories running around the clubhouse about Chet Lemon. And he was a bit of a character on a team of characters, right? If you think about the Bless You Boy 84 team, Chet made some great memories in there. And I think he overstayed a little bit longer in Detroit, kind of tail end of his career, probably not what everyone recalled. Because, even when he came over to Detroit, he had I think 7-8 years in the league by then. So he was kind of at that pinnacle, and he was on those last 2 or 3 years. So he was a huge fan favorite. And what I like about Chet was that a guy who liked the game, having fun, not taking it too seriously, but always there when it mattered. And sad to hear Chet's passing.
Finally, you see the Tampa Bay Rays moving to Orlando. They're talking about the Orlando Dreamers. It looks like that price went from $1.5 billion to $2 billion. It's the latest update I have. I personally wouldn't mind if they did, because it's a shorter drive up the Florida Turnpike. But we all talked about it last week while you were in Costa Rica, and I want to make sure that these topics were addressed tonight. We have plenty more to get to. Go ahead, some thoughts on that one.
Yeah, a little shocking that Orlando, pretty big town, hasn't had more pro sports, right? I believe the Magic they might have a soccer team as well, right? So
they do have a soccer team.
Yep. So they don't sit in the major hub of obviously the NHL or the NFL. So the idea of the fact that they could get an MLB team and support it would be a big deal. I know they've had issues with the Rays with that St. Pete Stadium. I'm surprised Tampa's not pushing hard with all the work that downtown Tampa Bay's done to bring that team back along into the city, quote unquote, and not in St. Petersburg. So I'm shocked by that. I think in the end there'll be maybe a little push pull on that, especially if this price tag keeps going up. I don't know if Orlando's gonna really want this thing at $2.5 billion, right? So it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, they would. And all my
They
reports
would?
are getting. Oh, I have a feeling they will, but $2 billion is what it currently stands. Here's what I see with that situation.
It's a blank check, Motor City. It's just a blank check over in Orlando.
Orlando's filled with money just because you went to Costa Rica. One of the last times you went over to Orlando. Really? Seriously? Really? You're the guy.
I got to take a walk.
Oh, give me a break. I'll see you in Detroit in about 5 weeks. Really? Seriously? Really? I'll say getting a tan. Not the worst thing in the world, but no, $2 billion Orlando Dreamers. I'd love to see it. Salutations, J.D. Wyatt. Kudos to you, my friend. And head the line versus is absolutely wasted. So proud about that. So we had to break the Clark man in here. We really did. I'm really killing tonight. So what? I do it every time. And to my adopted mom, Linda DeRocher out there, she says she loves me in red. Oh, I love wearing red. Linda, and all you did was just reinforce the dress code here. She's watching it. My adopted mama, Linda DeRocher, is watching us through YouTube. She knows I love her. God bless. All right, off at the sentimental stuff. We got more baseball to talk about. We're going to talk about the Detroit Tigers. Why? Because here's the thing. They're the only team in MLB in the modern era to shut out their opponent by 8+ runs in the 8th inning or later. 2 games in a row, people. They beat the Angels 8-0 on Thursday and a Friday by the same score. And get this, they're the first team that's made it to 30 wins. Who would have thought that? All right, Clark, we're going to let you go ahead and talk about the Tigers, a team for which you were once gainfully employed by.
Both of those teams, actually. So, as you look at that, the Angels, I can't figure it out, man. They 8-0, 8-0. And then I see you're wearing your Angel red, maybe in favor of that Dodgers sweep in the rivalry series, right?
It wasn't really
Hey,
planned,
now.
but now that you brought it up, I guess it kind of worked out. Go ahead. I had to interrupt
Right.
you. Now you brought the
And
Angels
then I think I just don't know the Angels. I don't know what you got. I've seen them, and I've seen them look like a playoff team, and I've seen them on another night. Those 2 back-to-back nights, they look like they didn't belong. They look like they belonged in the International League. And no knock on the International League at all. That's a AAA club. And so the issue with that is like it's just there's that level of inconsistency. It does remind me of a road defeat of the Toronto Maple Leafs, getting beat 6-1 twice by your Florida Panthers in Game 5 and Game 7. I mean, what are we doing out here? You can't let someone just smack you down and throw 2 bagels up on you back to back while giving up 8 runs. It's disheartening. It's a bad clubhouse day for you. It doesn't give teams a lot of hope when you're in May thinking, yeah, we're a playoff team when you see stuff like that.
Well, by the way, let me set the record straight. They're Joshua Doerr's Florida Panthers team, and I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, and we'll talk about the Angels shortly. I'm glad you brought them up. But what are your thoughts about the Detroit Tigers? They're at the 8-0 blowouts. Of course, now they're the first team to 30 wins, which is hard. I'm not surprised. It's like a carryover from last year. But what are your thoughts about the Motor City Kitties?
Well, we all knew they had the arms in that rotation too, and in that rotation and bullpen to really to really make some noise. I mean, you have Tarek Skubal, the reigning Cy Young winner. You got Flaherty back, and Casey Mize, was making his return. But I did not expect their offense to make the seismic leap and bounds that it has, because they were all banking on, instead of I know they tried to get Bregman, but then they didn't, and then they weren't really in on any other major bats. Yeah, they got Gleyber Torres, which okay, but people were expecting a little more than just Gleyber Torres. But no one expected Javi Baez and Spencer Torkelson to all of a sudden start living up to what people were hyping them as when they came to Detroit. Either they were drafted or they were signed to free agent. But man, the Tigers are actually a legitimately fun team to watch this year. I mean, their pitching coach, Mark Federer, he's one of the better pitching coaches in the league, who, even though he says he's content right now, it wouldn't surprise me if, since we're seeing managerial jobs open left and right, if they try and make a serious run a team tries to make a serious run and try and hire him. But, this team's been fun. I mean, gosh, but the offense, it's been fun to seeing the growth of that team, seeing the offense kind of gel and kind of come out of nowhere. And obviously their pitching staff with Tarek Skubal. I mean, gosh, everybody wants an arm like that.
All right, Taylor.
Yeah, Tarek Skubal has been amazing. He's almost invincible. The Tigers' offense, as a whole unit, they're up and down. But Baez and Torkelson have been very positive surprises. Very incredible turnarounds. They have their ups and their downs, but Trey Sweeney has been chipping in, of course. Also, Gleyber Torres, of course, as Eric Katz mentioned. Gleyber, he's been up and down, but he's been contributing. The pitching, the fielding. The Tigers' defense is cut back on committing errors, and they lead in all of Major League Baseball in terms of record, ahead of the Dodgers, 2 games up on the Dodgers, by the way, who lost again to the Angels, which gives the Tigers an extra game up of breathing room. And right now they are trailing the St. Louis Cardinals 2-0 at Busch Stadium. Cardinals are warming up. Cardinals are threatening in the bottom of the 5th with nobody out. But in general, the Tigers have been amazing overall thus far this season.
Okay, George.
Hope they keep it up.
Yeah, it's been quite a. You go back to August of last year, and they are the best team in baseball. When you go back to August, and you add all the games this year, so they're ahead of the Dodgers in that regard. But we all know you can't win it all on paper. And what I see in this team is probably what a little bit what has been echoed by you, Taylor. They're playing better defense. One fellow that you didn't mention that's been phenomenal, really, from Ohio State University, the catcher, Dingler. This guy has come on and filled in for Jake Rogers while Jake was hurt and done a tremendous job. Sweeney, you mentioned Sweeney too, another one. Don't forget Riley Green is coming up with another all-star type of season. And nobody predicted, of course, with Baez and Torkelson, like you guys said. But in California, out in LA, out in Angelsville, that was unbelievable. You look at those scores, and like you mentioned, Scott, all those runs that were scored by Detroit, 10-4 the first game, second game 9-1. Then they lost. They lost 5-2. The Tigers did to LA, but then 13-1 in that last game.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
Tremendous power demonstrated at the Big A in Anaheim.
That's a
by the
nuclear
Detroit
bomb.
Tigers. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Bombs away.
All right. Well, since everybody's been dancing around this, we're going to go ahead and talk about it anyways.
Eric's
We're
got
gonna
something to
talk
say.
about-
I was gonna
What?
say, I was gonna add too. I mean, I remember early in the year, everyone was said the Dodgers were gonna break the all-time wins record and ruin baseball, blah blah blah. But guys, the season is shaping out to what we know baseball season as. Regardless of how much money you spend, no matter what moves or decisions you make, ultimately the win and the loss record, it comes the players who play against each other ultimately have the final say on what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, one topic that Trent brought up a little bit earlier, we're going to reiterate on it now, is the fact that the $329 million Dodgers were swept by the Shohei Ohtani's. You talk about rivalry week, right, Eric? He certainly was. Old team, the Angels. Get this, successive scores of 6-2, 11-9, and 6-4. Eric, what are your thoughts about the fact that the old Dodgers got a little and Ohtani got a rude awakening from Ron Washington's Angels?
Good. Any day the Dodgers lose or get swept is a good day. I know that their injured list is longer than the Magna Carta at the moment, especially with pitching arms. It's obviously it's great for the Angels. Gosh, they've been suffering for a while, especially with Mike Trout, unfortunately, just being unable to stay healthy. Where at this point in his career, I really believe his body has completely failed him. It's refreshing to see. It's I'm sure the people over in Anaheim who are tired of being kind of looked at as the second-rate Los Angeles, I'm sure they loved it. And it was just great all around. But again, it goes back to the players. No matter what moves you make or how much money you have or what big name players you have on your team, those 9 guys who go out in between the lines have the final say on what happens on the field.
Okay, Taylor, your thoughts about what happened to the Dodgers via the Angels this weekend?
I mean, the Angels were just playing spoiler on the Dodgers. The Angels came to play. The Dodgers just took the Angels for granted. They just kept falling behind. They kept losing. It's a surprise that the Dodgers got swept by the Angels because the Dodgers are on paper the better team, but the Angels just came to play and they played better. That's the bottom line.
Okay, George.
Yeah, it was a bit surprising in rivalry weekend that the Angels could do that. I mean, you look at those scores; they averaged like 8 runs a game. The Angels did in those 3 victories at Dodger Stadium, no less. And basically, I think you're right, Taylor. They just took them too lightly, and they probably felt like, oh, this is a cakewalk here this weekend. You know, these guys can't do anything. They had lost 5 out of their previous 7 games. The Angels did prior to facing the Dodgers last weekend. So on paper, it sure looked like a mismatch. But hey, when you get natural rivals together like that, you throw the records out the book, as they say, out of the record book. You know, like we do in college football with rivalries. But baseball rivalry weekend was great, especially if you're an Angels fan. But I don't see them continuing that. I think the Dodgers maybe got a kick in the butt now. Maybe they'll realize they got to show up every day.
All right, I've got a couple of facts, and I'll let Trent Clark comes talk about this when he returns. He's tied up the hockey rink, so he might be busy doing something, but I'm sure he'll be back soon enough. But I'm going to throw a couple of facts out there while we have an opportunity to do that. Kumar Rocker struck out 7 last year in his debut. He's the first Indian player to appear in the big leagues. So there you have it. So Kumar Rocker, just a little bit of an anniversary about an Indian player who's doing pretty well in the big leagues. Another FYI out there is this, and this one really intrigued me. Let's go back in time on June 23rd, 1971. Rick Wise became the first and only pitcher in MLB history to hit 2 home runs while pitching a no-hitter. Wow. A 4-0 win in Cincinnati. Only a 6th-inning walk to Dave Concepcion kept him from a perfect game. I'll leave it wide open to the panel. Not everybody has to comment if they're not comfortable with it. But what are your thoughts about what Wise did? He did a wise job hitting the record books for the most interesting reasons. All right, Eric, some thoughts.
I mean, it's something that you probably the odds of that happening are very astronomical. I mean, it's not gonna even back then. I mean, odds are because back in the day, pitchers used to be the automatic out for the most part. I mean, if a pitcher gave up a hit to a pitcher, it was actually kind of really embarrassing. But it's something you're not going to see nowadays, especially with the universal DH, and obviously because they want to keep these guys healthy, because especially nowadays when it seems like Tommy John University has a bigger bigger class sizes than some of the bigger schools in the country. But it was nice to have a guy contribute to his own cause like that. I mean, throw a no-hitter and hit 2 home runs supporting your own cause. It's probably something really cool to see at the time.
What about you, George?
Well, Scott, your friend, and our friend Mickey Lolich. Remember? Oh God, he hit that home run in the World Series, but that was 1 home run. But no, what Wise did was unbelievable. And to think the concentration on that no hitter, and then going up to bat like you had to in the National League, like you said, Eric, it's astronomical odds that was ever going to happen again. And now, of course, we have with the DH, universal DH. Obviously, we'll never see it again, but that is incredible because just to think of that he's got a no hitter going, but it's also getting up to the plate and slugging it out of the ballpark 2 times. Hats off to Rick Wise. What a great pitcher during his day.
Taylor, anything you want to add to this?
Rick Wise played like a cyborg. 2 home runs, 1 no-hitter, all in the same game. He was a machine, an unstoppable machine. I know the word cyborg seems too futuristic as opposed to a long time ago, but my God, that's just something one invincible robot would do.
Okay,
let's get that right.
We're going to go back to Trent. Obviously, he probably had to get to his vehicle, so we got him back. First of all, what are your thoughts about the Angels and what they did over the Freeway Series?
Well, first of all, we were just talking about getting hopeless in May by getting your butts kicked by the Tigers at home, and scoring 1 run in a weekend in a series, right? And then you go across town and smack the 300 and blang million, Dodgers 3 times in the face. I think, that gives teams something to build on after a 5-7 week. That's the kind of stuff that you need to turn. and that can get streaks going. And I think that's a big deal for, I know anytime cross-time rivalries, it's bragging rights. You know, I live in the great state of Michigan, right? Me and Mitten Man over here. And like Michigan State games, it's a talk for the year. Like, so when these series come up, Mets and Yankees, this is bragging rights for the year. You know, like, so you want to win those series. Those are the big things. That's a big deal. So I agree with Taylor and George, man. Like, I think the Dodgers are like, hey, I'm taking a week off here. And the weekend off, we're playing the Angels, overlooking a squad that was really down, and they thought they would kick them when they're down, and that did not work out. So hats off. I think people got to remember, everybody in that league comes to play. No one's rolling over. No one's going to just give up. Like, that's not how it's going to happen. On the other two, man, I love the idea of the Native American being the first in the league, the debut in this day in history. That's a big deal. I think, you know, we keep seeing, you know, all these nationalities arriving in pro sports and the big leagues, and it's pretty cool as you just see it. Obviously, Taiwan, Japan, you know, all the Asian countries are getting well represented now, and it's just going to keep growing. It's gonna be fun, man. When, you know, I'm waiting for the first pitcher from Ecuador. You know, like, who knows who's next, right? It'll be fun. And then Rick Wise, I coached with Rick Wise, so you know, I had a chance to coach with Rick, and he's a great guy, just incredible human being, really good pitching coach. Never talked about that, by the way. You know, never would. He's the guy that you would never know has had that kind of accomplishment, right? He's about the most humble guy that you'd ever want to meet. Very soft-spoken. Really liked Rick a lot, and really enjoyed him. And you know, and obviously, that record's going to stay. Like, as Katsy mentioned, it's all over for the pitchers hitting. Now we got the universal DH. Those are the things we're not gonna see for a long time, until there's another rule change and they go back to that. And I doubt they ever go back to that.
Great stuff. Well, you know, we have our weekly Hall of Fame. So Bobby Grich, Hall of Fame, yes or no? Let me give you the particulars, people. 286 average, 1,833 hits, like the last 33. 224 home runs, 864 RBI, 6-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove. Do we award for defense, Mr. Clark?
Man, Bobby's a friend, right? Longtime Angel and Angel commentator. He's been up in the booth a while and always a field guy, on-field personnel in spring training, working with the younger players, giving back. Bobby's just a great individual and played the game right. I mean, for me, hard-nosed guy and also one of those early era big second baseman guys, right? He's not a small guy. And so, you know, for me, man, Bobby's right at the edge. You know, I'd love to see him get in as a person. I don't know if the stats will support it, given what's been there before.
Okay, Eric.
Bobby Grich. I know he played for the Orioles and then eventually went to the Angels. I know back then Bobby Grich was one of the free agents the Yankees were looking at when in the 70s when free agency first became a thing, but they ended up signing Reggie Jackson. Of course, the rest is history with that signing. But I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he has the offensive. He's got the offensive stats to support it. Yeah, he was a great defender, but you know, the Hall of Fame takes into account offense as well. And I just don't think he has it. And he was a good player, but I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy.
Okay, George.
Yeah, he was a good player. I mean, you know, we saw him occasionally when the Orioles or when the Angels came into town. My concern would be, if you look at his stats, there's really he didn't lead the league really in anything. That one year when he had 22 doubles, I guess, 1981 or whenever it was, he led the league in that stat. But for the most part, just very steady, even keeled. He did not make the 2,000 hit plateau. Obviously, his home runs were not as frequent because he wasn't really a big home run hitter, but he ended up with 224 dingers. But I would not vote for him for the Hall of Fame. But damn, he was a great ball player, a good solid player, and a very good glove too.
Taylor.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you guys. Not quite a Hall not quite Hall of Fame material. He was great. He contributed on offense and defense. Like I mentioned before, it takes even more than just greatness to achieve that Hall of Fame spot. And right now, he just did. And to me, to all of us, he just didn't quite reach that plateau.
I'll say one thing: lots of sports defense win championships, but won't get Bobby Grich in the Hall of Fame. All right, Eric Katz, right for Belly Up Sports. So guess what? We're going to give them a little bit of an endorsement. But before I do so, can you believe that Jim Palmer has never eaten a chicken wing in his life? Oh, Jim, you're missing out on some good food. I love chicken wings. I don't know about you guys. Do you guys like chicken wings? Just raise your hand.
We all do, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
What about chicken thighs?
We live in the Midwest.
It's okay. I like chicken wings, but you want to put chicken thighs, I'll give it to you, Taylor.
Scott, most of us live in the Midwest. We got plenty of farmland around.
That's true.
I'm with Jim Palmer.
I'm addicted to chicken wings. If you don't believe me, ask my wife. Then again, don't worry, we do. It's what we do. Won't say the rest of the
sauce.
Pardon me. I had buffalo.
Add some buffalo sauce.
Put some ranch on that.
This is what Josh Shador and the rest of his group should be on because we're talking food. But these guys will probably watch the show later. It's no big deal because we're talking food for a change.
Anyway.
But one thing we're also going to talk about is the fact that Jim needs to figure out the Baltimore Orioles situation, why they traded Kyle Stowers and Connor Norby over to the Miami Marlins. Eric wrote about this, and I know a lot of that has to do with Peter Bendix putting on his breast Brad Holmes imitation of being a fleece artist, because that's exactly what happened here. Keep in mind, Kyle Stowers is hitting .302 with 10 home runs, 30 RBI for Miami. He's a great, pure left-handed hitter. All right, so thoughts about this trade, Eric, and Jim Palmer eating the wings. I'll give you both, but I want you to talk about the Stowers trade, and you can talk about what you put in that article.
Well, I wrote about this. I wrote about this yesterday, and it's one of the many moves that have ultimately screwed Baltimore's starting rotation, and we've seen what it's become as it is today. But here's the thing: Baltimore at the time had the farm system to go out and get anybody they desired. They could have gotten anybody that would have made a reliable, like mid rotation guy, because I know they got Eflin that same trade deadline, who's proven to be a pretty good guy you want in your rotation, like not an ace, but a solid number number 2, number 3 guy. But he overpaid. Those Connor Norby in particular was looked upon as a high prospect, but Baltimore didn't go with them. They decided to trade for Trevor Rogers, and many people viewed it as an overpay back then because Trevor Rogers at that point had a lifetime ERA of 4.36 and had only been good once, which was the year he was a Rookie of the Year runner-up and happened to represent the Marlins in the All-Star game. It was a trade I thought was so screwed up from the beginning that I knew it was going to blow up in Mike Elias's face, and it did, because after 4 starts, they carted his behind back to the minor leagues, and that's where he's been ever since. And actually, he got hurt during the spring with a leg injury, and he hasn't pitched this year, with the exception of being in the minor leagues. And even then, the guy's getting lit up like a pinball machine at the minor league level. It arguably might actually be one of the worst trades in the Baltimore Orioles franchise history. It's why their team is so screwed up now. I get that Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells were hurt, but that's no excuse. There were plenty of other rental arms out there that might have actually been a better solution than Trevor Rogers. He had red flags all over him, but apparently Mike Elias was so blind that he couldn't even see the red flags.
Well, Eric, you really get a break tonight. You actually get 2 rants.
That's rant 1 of 2, man.
Yeah, that's rant 1.
This guy gets. Oh, that's all right. I'll let Clarky pick him up. What are your thoughts about? I'd say one thing about Clarky tonight, though, and he'll see this there. I've asked him twice to please stay with us, but to his credit, though, even if he's with us, because I know he's doing other stuff, having to get from the car to the rink to the house. At least he's listening to the show. Gotta love it.
That's right. That's right.
At least he listens. He's paying attention. That's all I'm going to say. So now that I have the facial version of them, here are your thoughts about the first of two of Eric's rants. What about the police job that Peter Bendix did to the Baltimore Orioles? For real?
Yeah, I mean, it's listening to the rant. Every time I listen to Catsy's rants, I end up siding with Catsy. I want to disagree with the guy. I really do. Like, I just want to say, like, listen, I don't think these guys know what they're talking about. But 90% of the time, I stay with Catsy on these things, man. Like, it's a tough thing, and it's becoming this, like, just when the Baltimore Orioles fans had some hope, it's like they just pull it out, and it's sad. And I don't know what I don't know the direction it's headed, but with as Catsy said, it's not headed in the right direction.
Good.
Well, I think Catsy gives me one rant, but I'm going to set the guy up for two. I mean, come on, really? Seriously, really? That's all right. He's got another one coming, but I had to put this up. He wrote for Belly Up Sports. Only thing you have to do now is reshare it on Facebook when you know it becomes a topic here. Otherwise, you did everything all right there, Eric. And I should point out, Eric, just so you know, and everybody else, I did submit my story for the IBWAA, and it was actually featured in there about the Marlins and the Athletics about a couple of weeks ago. So hats off to the IBWAA. I didn't know about them until Catsy told me about it. Now I'm going to get some of my stuff put in there. Okay, some thoughts, George, about Catsy's first rant about how Brad Holmes Jr., Peter Bendix fleeced the Baltimore Orioles.
Hey, maybe the Orioles thought they were getting Jake Rogers or even Kenny Rogers from Detroit.
Don't start. Just can't stay
well,
on point.
anyways, he has been not productive at all. Obviously, that goes without saying. So yeah, it was a bad trade, no question about it. And it's a series of bad moves by the Orioles and what's happened to them. And then these kind of things come back and haunt you, and it certainly has haunted them very well. Although you never could predict when a pitcher gets hurt, or any ball player, everyday player as well, you do know this, and that's you either gave up too much or you didn't get enough in return. But that was a stinker. That was a stink bomb. I agree with you what you said, Eric, on that one.
Okay, Taylor, you've had a chance to absorb it all. What are your thoughts about this situation about the Brad Holmes?
Terrible trade. It's a bad look on the Orioles general manager from that point. A bad look on the Orioles owner. Once the stats prove it just gives you the possibility of being fired in general, and that trade was terrible enough to prove it.
Okay, so let's go back to I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I'll go ahead and allude to it now, and that's a Baltimore Orioles managerial situation. Not only does Jim need to figure out what's going on there with the Orioles situation, but think about it. Brandon Hyde just got fired by there. Candy will put up some stats in a moment, but after he was laid off by Baltimore, Towson State's actually going to go out there and sign him, and he will specialize in coaching fifth-year seniors. If you think taking this as lightly, don't do it, because I'm going to tell you something. He could actually be a positive contributor there. But do I think that Hyde was to blame for it? I don't know, but Buck Showalter won a little bit, and things didn't end well for Buck Showalter. So, Eric, I'm going to go back to you on Brandon Hyde. And Candy, please come up with the stats on Brandon Hyde as well.
Well, good for Brandon for Brandon Hyde for landing on his feet. I mean, obviously it didn't take him long I'm sure his wife's happy that he wasn't on the couch very long. But good for him for finding something to do in the meantime. Do I believe he will manage again? Absolutely, I think he'll manage again. He was a part of the reason why he helped why the Orioles got turned around to begin with in such a short period of time. And, he won a division title, and he took him to the postseason twice. Do I think it was totally his fault in Baltimore? No, because once again, Mike Elias was so negligent with his pitching staff that he gave Brandon Hyde nothing to work with. Charlie Morton had red flags all over him, but once again, the blind was leading the blind there, and and Mike Elias couldn't see past the foul pole and signed him for, I believe, $15 million a year. And ever since then, Charlie Morton's looked like a batting practice pitcher. The Braves normally like to keep their core intact, but if they're letting a pitcher go who was like a big part of their, especially their World Series team in 2021 and as well as subsequent playoff teams, you think there's a reason for it? God, sometimes I wonder how stupid he can be. But and then also to make the same mistake again of bringing back Kyle Gibson, who was serviceable at best with the Cardinals, and then you bring him back where he was during his first stint, he was god awful in Baltimore, and then the second time around was worse. Gosh, I thought I was watching a little league pitcher with him pitching on the mound against major league hitting. But it's I think Hyde will land him. I think next managerial cycle, I believe he has an opportunity to get a big league managing job because he's proven he can do the job. He helped turn around in Baltimore, and I think in a better situation where they actually give him arms, I think he can lead a team far into the postseason. And part of it, and with that though, Hyde will manage again, but this was a catastrophic screw up by Mike Elias caving to the fans.
All right, I'll tell you what, Taylor, I'm going to turn to you, but first of all, you get the due diligence of reading the stats that Candy has provided, and then you can comment on this, all right?
Yep. In 2023, Hyde got his 300th win as an MLB manager in a 6-3 road victory over the Los Angeles Angels on September 4th, in which the Orioles established a new American League record by surpassing the 1922-24 New York Yankees, with 84 consecutive series of 2+ games of not being swept in 23. The Orioles finished the 2023 season with a 101-61 record, 623 winning percentage, the first 100+ win season since 1980. Hyde led the Orioles to their first AL East title since 2014 and first playoff appearance since 2016. Is there another comment?
I don't know, but Candy, if you get a chance, come up with his career record too. Until she does that, go ahead.
But anyway, firing Brandon Hyde was not a good move by Mike Elias. Like Eric Katz pointed out, the pitching staff was terrible. Nothing to work with. That's definitely not his fault. I think he should have stayed, but just for Elias to throw Brandon Hyde onto the bus like that. I mean, come on. Why in the world would you do that? That you gotta reflect on the previous year. If you're Mike Elias, I mean, come on. That's an inept general manager right there. Even more inept than Al Avila, for God's sake.
Ouch.
Ouch. Oh, that's putting it out there. All right, so
it wasn't that bad.
Well, there you go. That's a good. All right, so Candy, a little bit more summary. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm hard
on the screen, and then you can read that one too. Okay. Summary: 2025 career games. What do you have?
So his career games was 916. He has a win record of 421, loss record of 495. So the percentage is 460.
There you go. Her statistician sets it straight. Okay, there you go. Taylor, you're a little smarter now because you all have that information.
Wow.
Not that you are, but there's a lot of stats. That's why she handles stats on Monday night.
Smokes, Bullwinkle.
Baseball spill was. That's why she doesn't come on there, so she can do all this crack research for us.
Thank you, Candy.
With that said, Trent, when you're taking a bite out of Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 46%, got to look at the body of the work. You also got to look at what he was handed. It wasn't much. When they did have something, he did a big turnaround. He had a young team, got him focused on what was really important, which is what's right in front of you. And what usually young talent can manage is about 3 days, about 3 days of goals. So they're like, hey, listen, we're going to play 3 games. Let's win 2 of them. Let's win series. And instead of getting, hey, we need a 100-win season to get in the playoffs, and there's 162 games, and hanging that on some goal sheet with some kid who's 21 years old up in the big leagues, his head spinning. He can't manage that goal. What he can manage is the next 3 days. Let's go get the series. Let's go get the wins. And they put that streak together, which is for real. And look at the staggering results. Like, you start winning series, listen, you're going to win 2/3 of the games, right? That's about 100 games. Like, that's how it works out. So, I think it's a brilliant strategy. A lot of coaches, a lot of managers have tried to inject that into the MLB season. It's just wise work. For Brand, he's a young coach. He's got a lot of upside. I mean, I think people think a lot of him. I think he did a lot with a little, which is what I think people are going to remember him for. He did a lot with a little. And, when you talk about like Showalter and some of the other guys, most managers see, careers end badly, right? They kind of either hanging on too long, get a kind of a bad rap. But Showalter seems to be exceptional about ending really badly wherever he goes. So, there's some exception to the rule there. But the reality is, in this business, guys, right? Everybody gets fired. That's the reality of the deal, is that no one very rarely do you get to exit stage left on your own accord. You got to go out there and you got to do the job, and then they get fired. And, that's when they decide you're moving on. So it's a 99% fire rating, right?
Just a little Marlins update. Marlins 8, Chicago Cubs 7. That's the final score. And Showalter always takes situations that are bad and turns around. In his case, he's the first manager of Arizona Diamondbacks. And when you think about what happened there with Bob Brenly, he built that team from the ground up, and Bob Brenly got the ring. So with that said, George, Marlins over the Cubbies, 8-7. Final score. We have it. Breaking news. All right, George, what are your thoughts about the Brand Man?
He was let go too soon, no question about it. Elias was quoted as saying that the buck stops with him. Well, I tend to disagree, because you obviously were big part of the problem that was going on right there this last year and their postseason of a year or so ago, or 2 years back. I mean, obviously that team was formed and was ripe to get into the World Series. It didn't happen. It's all just logic. They fire managers left and right, like you guys said. Unfortunately, it happens way too much. And the thing is that there's going to be obviously a search for a new guy in the off season. Be interesting to see who takes that job. But I think that the fact that Towson State's already looking at our friend and using his talents bodes well for him. He will definitely, I agree, Scott, land up somewhere else in the major leagues with a managerial job.
Yeah, I'll give Clarkie credit. He didn't last on the couch too long, and his wife was nice. That's okay. Go to Towson. No big deal. And by the way, for all of you people that miss Peter Angelos, this probably can't bring him back from the dead. But boy, I'll tell you, Peter Angelos doesn't look so bad in this after the latest fiasco in Baltimore. But there's something good that did come out of Baltimore in 1996. That being that Brady Anderson had a 96 season to remember, 297 with 50 home runs, 110 RBI, 172 hits, 117 runs, 37 doubles. And you have to look at 76 walks and 106 Ks. So how does history, Eric, treat Brady Anderson, Eric?
Well, before I get into Brady Anderson, it's in '96 too, the Orioles were in the playoffs that year, and I want to thank Jeffrey Meyer for reaching his hands over Tony Tarasco, and ultimately propelling the Yankees to the World Series. It's most likely the 50 home run. It's very much an accepted fact in baseball that Brady Anderson's 50 home run here more than likely came via the needle. I think that baseball views kind of him as just baseball views him as probably a steroid user. At the 1 year he hits 50, the rest of the time he's hitting like 18 and 20. I just think they kind of view him in the same light as some of the other guys who used during that time. Obviously he didn't. It's never been proven, but very much believed that he did. I'm not saying the guy's a pariah like Alex Rodriguez was for a while, but it's very much an accepted fact that a 50 home run year came because of the needle. Because look at the rest of his career.
Well, Taylor mentioned Al Avila. First of all, Trent, just so you know, Al Avila is retired and living in Florida, doing very nicely. I have his number. We stay in touch from time to time. And guess who resurfaced on the Marlins telecast? Alex Avila was with my buddy Craig Minervini yesterday. So Alex Avila is doing a bit of broadcast work here in Miami. And of course, both of you Tiger fans, Rod Allen is doing nicely here in South Florida. And I'm glad that he's down here with me. Great
Good.
stuff. Now, if we could get Trevor Thompson down here, oh, I would be in heaven if Trevor Thompson came here. Trevor Thompson is the most genuine, unbelievable guy on the planet. Just had to get that out there. So anything you want to add, Taylor Phillips, about Brady Anderson, or is it something you're not as knowledgeable about?
I've never even heard of it. Anyway.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that. Okay, not a big deal. But that's why I brought your Al Avila mention in there.
By the way, Trevor Thompson, I think is Canadian. He does more hockey than baseball.
Yeah, not anymore. FanDuel Sports made some changes. Trevor and I are in touch. So, but Trevor Thompson, George and I both know.
Really? Yeah. His position was eliminated along with Mickey York's.
Yeah, a lot of them are. So that's nothing against Trevor. FanDuel Sports is doing their own thing, and we'll leave it at that. But
John Keating retired.
Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall with that as well. So
at least with Johnny Kane, that schmuck.
Well, tell me how you really feel. Okay. Sorry, we'll go to a resident Detroiter.
I'll grant you this. Brady Anderson, yeah. I mean, there's always a scuttlebutt about that stuff, the needle, as Eric affectionately called it. But he did have several decent years for the Orioles. He is in their Hall of Fame, the Orioles Hall of Fame. That doesn't mean he's a world beater with his stats and his career, but he was one of the guys that, again, was a thorn in a lot of people's side, the American League, when he was hot and when he was doing his number on the opposing pitchers. I haven't really thought about him much at all lately, but you're right. That was a very, very short career that he was way up at the high part of it, his high point, and there is that cloud over him as well. But he was a good Oriole for quite a number of years. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Clarkie. And then our final topic of the night figures to be Mr. Rancher himself. He'll have 2 or 3. He says he's going to come out with 1, but darn well, if I want to get Eric Katz's goat, I'm going to let him go 2 or 3 times. I just have to figure out he gets to choose 1, and then I go out there and manufacture 1 or 2. Because, right, Clark, we got to make sure we have our Barry Sanders of the group. Nothing against you guys, but let's face the reality. This kid knows more about baseball than a lot of people combined. Why do you think Eric Katz is what he is at such a young age? But, all right, some thoughts about what I just said, Mr. Anderson. Then we turn over to Eric for his final rant of the night. And I know Jazz 13 will enjoy this one later because I know he is a subscriber. He came on early. We love having them and everybody else that participated in the chat room. All right, Clarkie.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna weigh in on Brady. Then I'm gonna have to sign off here. But
That's all right.
I would say on Brady, one thing I knew about Brady was Brady trained hard. Brady would work on his strength work. He would do a lot of the work. He worked with a couple of the Olympic guys and worked with a guy named Steve Odgers, who's now working directly with our big super agent over there, working with all the top tier players. So Brady put in some time on that. There was a big rumor mill about what he took and that big leap from, I think, 17 home runs to 50 in 1 year. And, one heck of a year. But, he's well known in Baltimore as a fan favorite, a guy who came to play every day, guy who hustled on and off the field. He had a great reputation for a grinder, gritty player, went up there and was a hard out, not an easy at bat on any pitcher, made him work. Also adjusted a number of roles, ran out of leadoff, ran out of number 2 hole, ran out of the 8 hole. Like they would switch him up and he would adapt to whatever they needed to in that lineup to make those Orioles run. And, I think he's always overshadowed by, one of these guys named Cal Ripken Jr. But, he had a good career over there in Baltimore and probably got a lot of notoriety during some heyday of Cal's kind of years there. And, I think people, I think Brady Anders surprised a lot of people with some really good years. But the one thing I'll say, whether it's true or not about Brady and getting help, that guy was always working to be the best he could be, and I'll leave it with that with Brady Anderson.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. You're not leaving here without promoting your book, but I'll just let everybody know we love having Clarky on here every Monday night on 108.6 Baseball Talk. No show next Monday night. We'll be back better than ever in 2 weeks. So I know, Trent, you've been great to get on here and try to find a way to fit us in your schedule tonight. Very much appreciated. We appreciate you, everybody across the panel. We all know that. And looking forward to seeing you meet Stan Huff in about a couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to meet him. So, all right, with that said, I know he's got a roll, but he's not rolling without promoting his book. Go ahead. The floor is yours, and then we'll take it the rest of the way. Thanks, Trent, for pulling this off tonight. And I'm still waiting for your stories about Costa Rica. When we get back to Detroit, you better have some good ones.
Yeah, we'll have some good Costa Rican stories. And you can find me at Trent@leadershipity.com. I am the host of Winners Find a Way, top tier podcast. And of course, my book is Leading Winning Teams, done with Wiley Publishing, and been out now since August. Please check that out. Get it. Please reach out to me anytime you like. Trent@leadershipity.com. Love talking sports. I can't wait to hear from you.
And you know, Trent, one of the things we're going to do is when we talk, I want to get some information about your publisher. So be prepared to answer a couple of questions. I've got some ideas, and I know we've talked about doing some joint ventures as well. So glad you're on here, but you and I have a lot more ahead of us. All right. With that said, Trent, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next Monday night, or not.
2
not
weeks.
Monday,
2 weeks.
Monday. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. We'll be in touch.
Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Happy
All right,
Memorial
there you
Day.
go. Thank you. Now there are a few of us. All right, well, that's it. Our final segment of the night is Eric's rant. Talk about the Subway Series, and then if any of us want to, we'll go out there and do it. All right, Eric, go ahead and roll.
I'd probably say this one was the most fun for Yankee fans in particular in a while. You know, the $765 million man, Juan Soto comes back to the Bronx, and next thing you know, he goes 1 for 10. Yes, 1 for 10, and it was also very fitting too that the players who ended up having the bigger games who ultimately contributed to the series win were players the Yankees pivoted on after Juan Soto decided to sign with the Mets. Paul Goldschmidt, Max Fried. I'm not sure if they would have still traded for Devin Williams, but I know for a fact they wouldn't have had Max Fried. And you know the players that those guys that the Yankees pivoted on, and then also if you want to include Cody Bellinger, who had the big grand slam last night, which ultimately ripped the heart out of Mets fans everywhere. But the pivot players that the Yankees decided to go to after Juan Soto left were the stars of the series. It was fantastic. It was fantastic to show the New York Mets that New York City will never be theirs. It never was, and it never will be. Even when they came back in 1962, they still stunk. And the fact of the matter remains, in order for them to even call New York their own, they got to start winning they would have to win championships in a short period of time, just like the Yankees have had a history of doing. And it would have to happen soon. However, they got a lot of catching up to do because right now, oh man, the $765 million man doesn't look like he's having any fun out there. And I think personally, this series, we saw just how soft he is, despite all the money he's making. The fact that he decides at the last minute not to be mic'd up during the second inning because I'm tired of them asking me about Aaron Judge and why I chose the Mets, blah blah blah. Well, guess what, buddy? You should have known it was going to be a subject of conversation with you coming back to your 1 year vacation home. It was bound to happen. And the fact that he was running on the field at the last moment just because he couldn't get a throw off. Well, guess what? You should have known you should know full on that the bleacher creatures are plenty pissed at you for breaking their hearts and going to a part that I don't even consider New York City. You should have known. I think he's soft. The Soto shuffle hasn't been there this year. I don't think the guy's happy. I think now he realizes he made a mistake almost in the same manner that Alex Rodriguez did when he left the Seattle Mariners to join the Texas Rangers, who were perennial losers at the time.
Nobody's topping that, and we're not even going to try. Taylor,
Talk about an almost billionaire diva. Sorry if I went too far.
Nah, you're fine. I'm not worried about it, but nobody's topping.
You're a better man than I. You're a better man than I was, Taylor.
Thanks,
Taylor. George, nobody's topping that rant. So you know what? We're going to quit while we're at. The only thing one of the things I took about it is I didn't know we went 1 for 10 in that series, and I'm leaving it at that. So with that said, Katsy, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you? We're going to do that, and we'll wrap it up here tonight. Go ahead, Katz. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my X and Twitter account at Sports Team News, and you check out my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I write about all things baseball. And if you think I don't like your team, and if you think I despise your team, yes, I probably do.
Yeah, you ought to trademark that one. Okay. There you go. Mr. Magnifying Glass, so everybody know how they get a hold of you.
I am the creator of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. I am the Michigan Sports Truth Detector. Subscribe to my podcast on YouTube. Listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Join its supporters club. Also follow it on X, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at Michigan_Truth, and like its Facebook page.
Great stuff. And Taylor bought my book, so he's had an opportunity to read it and look at it.
I've got it right here. I'm almost done.
Oh, yeah. How you learned a whole lot out of it?
Yes, I have.
Great stuff.
It's fantastic.
I'll let you go out there and talk about it at a later day. But meanwhile, you've come a long way, Taylor. We're glad to have you on Monday nights. And, of course, you're going to be the most MV or most versatile performer as time goes on the network. You've come a long way. I'm proud of you big time. Once Taylor Phillips realized that his potential was he didn't have to depend on anybody and he bet on himself, that's when I saw Taylor Phillips doing a wonderful job. And that up, boy. Shut up, my brother from another mother. Well, no, you're too young to be my brother. Close enough. We'll just put you another professor of people. One of these days you might end up on that show with myself and Stephen Reichel. All right. Go ahead, George.
All right. You can read me in the South Florida Tribune or the Detroit Monitor. At the end of my South Florida Tribune articles under the contributors section, there's a link to my book, which is Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. But you see a copy of the cover right there with our friends Bud Lynch and Bob Reynolds and Paul Carey and Gordie Howe's on the cover. Anyways, the book is available through Amazon, and you can find me on Twitter at SanGSports99, also on Facebook under my name, or reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. And great to be part of the show again. Great job, fellas, tonight. Enjoy that baseball talk.
Great stuff. All right, Candy, take us the way.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. The foreword is written by panelist George Eichhorn. The contents, meat, guts of the book was written by none other than your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the media business, and how it has evolved and changed. Again, it's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content. Go check it out. There's also a link to our merchandise store, as well as the link to Scott's book. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find any of our shows on the podcast platform that you choose. Monday nights, we talk Professor and the Pupil, and then we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights on Sports Exchange, and Thursday nights on Fire Up. You got to tune into both of those programs because you just never know what Scott's got up his bag of tricks or what the country club is going to be talking about. But then there's also normally a second show, at least now during the hockey season, Sports Exchange, where Scott talks hockey. And he typically has Mike Santos from Hockey Operations LLC. Got to check out that as well. Scott does a one-on-one interview show called the Motor City Madmouth Show. He's had some great guests on there. You got to go check it out as well. If you don't like to listen to long broadcasts, go check out our shorts. We have all kinds of shorts on our YouTube channel as well. Scott actually did he was in the media availability with the Marlins manager this past weekend. That's up on the YouTube channel as well. And if you like football, he's got all kinds of stuff, including some with Cam Ward, who was the #1 draft pick this past season. So you gotta go check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit that red subscribe button. And if you want to advertise or sponsor one of our shows, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
All right, well, as we get ready to wrap up the show, I got to tell you, Clayton McCullough is one of the best guys I've worked with, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to talk to Clayton McCullough. You'll hear more about him as the year goes on. But meanwhile, great show tonight. Trent, Eric, Taylor, George, as usual, do a good job. Candy, I believe, is our incredible statistician in the background, does all the pertinent research. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We'll have Memorial Day off. So I hope everybody has a safe Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy your time with your family. We'll be back better than ever in about 2 weeks from now. Same night, same station. Plan to bring Stan Huff back as well, one of your favorite people. Looking forward to the meeting between Stan Huff and Trent Clark, two incredible baseball minds that go along with the group that we have here. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Great turnout in the chat room. And we will see you next week, tomorrow night at around 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have the girls on there, Chicks and Salsa or Three Chicks in a Pod. Not sure which one than that. And after that, we have Inside the Pigskin. Hope you can join us. And then on Wednesday night, we'll have the Sports Exchange. And then on Thursday, another edition of the Sports Exchange. George Leichhorn will be on both of those particular episodes this week. And, of course, Fire Up on Thursday night. So Steve Reisel's done a really good job as well. And Eric Katz, as I reiterate at the top of the broadcast, will be doing the forward on my book when I work on it about our upcoming trip to Europe. More details will be disclosed at a later date. With that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Great job to my crew. And we will see you in 2 weeks. God bless everybody, and appreciate your time. If you didn't get it all on this, feel free to rewind to listen to a lot of facts. I like to load these shows with a lot of facts, and we did exactly that. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Magnifying Glass.